want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Shoot 'em a shot, boy, I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down. Aiming for greatness, no settling. Kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Taking no L's, yeah, I gotta win. Watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Who running the game now? Foot on the gas, can slow down. No, my team, we holding it down. We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.
Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mac, and tonight our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the supersized Atlanta Hawks, a team who on paper could actually represent a tougher matchup for a lot of teams due to their unique combination of size out there. Yes, Trae Young notwithstanding, who did not make it for this one as he's dealing with the injury. No one in their starting unit, I kid you not, is shorter than the 6'5" Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and they were playing without a traditional point guard tonight. So that much has to be said. But we already know the Cavaliers, they got some injury problems of their own. So I don't feel bad for anybody else out there. And you know what? Overall, although this game kind of had me antsy at times, the refereeing, that's a whole nother discussion. I know that we'll dive into it. But this was a very entertaining game from start to finish. I mean, seriously, there were a number of individual performances that I am going to touch on, but they got this thing kicked off immediately. And right out of the gate, they got off to a 10-0 run. DeAndre Hunter getting things started, the former Atlanta Hawk. Hell, Donovan Mitchell. This is a guy we're going to spend a lot of time talking about tonight. Obviously, he was cooking right out of the gate. He scored 9 of the Cavaliers' first 18 points. He drilled 3 triples in quick succession in that first quarter. But what ended up starting a lot of these buckets was on the defensive end, which led to a lot of transition opportunities, which were the result of that stellar defense. They were absolutely locked in to begin the game. Now, I wouldn't stay that way all game long. They would fight through some cold spells in terms of their shot, but I was very impressed when it mattered in terms of the team and individual defense out there. But like I said, the Hawks, they were not going to lie down, even without Trae Young out there. They fought their way back, but it felt like every single time that they managed to go on a run, the Cavaliers managed to pull away, right? They tie the game up, and mind you, there was a lot of fucking ties in this game. NBA.com tracks it at 7 times the game. Well, actually, I think I'm actually looking at the wrong scorecard on at least for that one. But as far as this one goes, I think the Cavaliers and the Atlanta Hawks tied a great deal of times tonight. NBA.com actually tracks that at 6 total times tonight where the game was actually tied and the lead changed 4 separate times. And so this was a back and forth affair, kind of closer towards the end. But it was an entertaining one. Like I mentioned, I felt as if every single time that Atlanta managed to bring something to the table, Cleveland was right there to kind of shut that down. Donovan Mitchell was at the forefront of that. Jaylen Tyson, who we're going to spend a lot of time talking about, was at the forefront of that. Lonzo Ball, you guys know I can't go a pot without talking about Lonzo. He was pretty key in this one too, as there were also a number of Cavaliers who did not necessarily have good showings in this one. But I don't know if there's any better place to start tonight's pod off than with Jaylen Tyson. Oh my God. Jaylen Tyson has been flat out phenomenal to begin this season. Jaylen Tyson tonight against these Atlanta Hawks scored 18 points, pulled down 3 boards, doled out 2 assists. And the best part of all, ladies and gentlemen, was the 3-point production. Our boy Jaylen, in his second season, shot 5 of 11 from the field, 5 of 11 from 3-point distance, which is 45.5%, 6 of 14 overall, and was a team high plus 16 out there. Now, for those of you curious, Jaylen Tyson, after tonight's game, is averaging 10.9 points. That's big, double figures for the first time, 2.7 boards, 1.6 assists, and get this, 50% from the field, including 44.1% from the three-point line on 4.9 attempts per game. Some of y'all in that group chat I was talking to, you know who I'm talking about. Y'all called me crazy when I said, yeah, this dude, he can average 38% from deep on at least 4 or 5 attempts. That's the baseline. Some of y'all was laughing at me when I said that. Now it ain't so funny, is it? My boy is knocking down 44.1% of his triples. That is 2.1 per game, while providing pretty damn good defense at the point of attack out there. It ain't Isaac Okoro in terms of that sheer wing defense, but it's pretty damn close. And you can tell he's still a young player, obviously, still committing some of these fouls that kind of frustrate and irritate at times, as he did pick up 5 whistles tonight. But some of them are questionable calls. Atlanta had a favorable whistle, which was annoying the hell out of me. I thought that there were a lot of fouls out there. I think he had one on Nickeil Alexander-Walker that really shouldn't have been called in the second half of that game. But it's okay, because Jaylen Tyson plays with this just physicality out there, this swagger on the defensive end, and he plays with a confidence out there that, frankly, a lot of these other guys just don't have consistently, outside of maybe Donovan Mitchell. And listen, I'm all for trying to be tempered with my expectations for a player that many people thought that this would be a make or break year for his rotational minutes. But the way that he's begun this season, I don't know how the hell Kenny Atkinson keeps him on the bench when Max Strus comes back, when Sam Merrill's healthy, when Darius Garland is out there. Basically, when you got your full complement of players available, I don't know how the fuck that you keep Jaylen Tyson on the bench when he's shooting this well from three-point range, giving you that good of a defense and hustling out there on both the glass. Because one of the things I love seeing from Tyson is the offensive putbacks, right? You don't often see guards or wings, whatever you want to classify Tyson as. You don't often see them providing that just pure hustle and energy on the offensive glass. And that's why a lot of people often compare him to players like Josh Hart. But I'll tell you what, this motherfucker is out there just destroying things from three-point distance. And it's been a number of games now where Tyson has looked very, very efficient from three-point range. In case you were wondering, tonight is actually the second game in which he's knocked down at least 4 triples on this season. He's hit a triple in all but one of his 7 appearances this season. He's only playing 24.3 minutes per game, mind you, and he's averaging 10.9. And so for me, I'm just looking at this and I'm saying to myself, I don't know what you do when the rotation is healthy, because my first inclination was, okay, Dean Wade is probably the odd man out, because you saw Kenny there. And I know that this was somewhat due to necessity because of the foul trouble that these guys were in, right? Tyson with the 5 fouls and Larry Nance Jr., who we're going to talk about in just a bit, picking up 4 fouls. I know that Kenny went small there towards the end. We saw lineups with, I think, Proctor, Ball, Tyson, and Craig Porter Jr. with Wade at the 5, if I'm not mistaken, which is a crazy lineup. And I'm going to be very curious to see what Cleaning the Glass has to say about the point differential and some of the offensive rating and defensive rating statistics for that lineup in particular. But it worked. It worked. I loved the experimentation. And again, there is that hint, there is that hint, that little bit of necessity because of who is out and because of the foul trouble. So not too much kudos to Kenny, because he kind of had to play these guys, but that was a hell of a lineup. And I think it worked, and Tyson was a big part of making that work. So was Lonzo Ball. Craig was out there hustling too. I mean, I thought that you got Craig fucking had 7 rebounds out there, 3 of the offensive variety. Ball had 3 offensive rebounds, 6 rebounds overall at the guard position. The guards were attacking the glass tonight, which is not something that you've been able to say over the last couple of games, right? It just feels like there's been a lot of long rebounds where the guards are just been in poor position. There's not enough hustle, not enough effort out there. But that was clearly not the case tonight for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. And I think Jaylen Tyson was at the heart of that in terms of kind of pulling everything together, making it work. But man, that was just such a phenomenal performance to see out of Tyson, because it feels like he's built upon his rookie season in major ways. After he ended that rookie season, he only shot like 34.5%, if I'm not mistaken, from the three-point line on very limited attempts in year one. He comes in year two, he's just letting the shot fly. It has been a refreshing thing to see, a beautiful sight to see out there, as Tyson has attempted at least 3 triples in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his 7 appearances thus far. Tonight, leading the way with 11 attempts. You just never saw that of Isaac from a consistency standpoint. Yeah, there would be stretches where Isaac would, go 3 of 3, 4 of 4 from distance, but rarely was he taking 7, 8, 9 triples. That shit just did not happen. And this is coming from somebody who is still a huge believer in Isaac Okoro. But Tyson, man, he appears to be a guy who can do it all out there. And I loved what he brought to the table tonight. I loved what we've seen from him to start the season. And I get it. It's just 7 games in. I understand that we have to, we can't always wear the wine and gold tinted glasses, but sometimes you just know when a guy is edging towards a true breakout. And there are at least 3 or 4 different guys on this roster that could potentially have that. We have already seen that with Sam Merrill. We are now seeing it with Jaylen Tyson. Evan Mobley, even after a breakout year last year, is still primed for an even bigger leap. He just has to get those percentages up as they're experimenting with some of his utilization. But man, they're doing some nice stuff out there from game to game. I know it's not always pretty. I know the shot isn't always falling team wide. And mind you, that second quarter, if I'm going to keep it a buck, it was a rough one as the Cavaliers got outscored 30-19. They missed like 8 shots to end the quarter. And the crazy thing is they were like feasting on Atlanta Hawk turnovers. Like in that first half alone, they forced 12 Atlanta turnovers, which led to 23 points off of turnovers. And they only turned it over 3 times themselves leading up to that half. They would end up shooting sub 35% from the field in that first half. It was a really tough watch. But what did they do, right? They came out and they responded in a major way in that third quarter, as they themselves felt like couldn't miss. They went on a 21-7 run over the course of about a 6-minute stretch from the 9:41 mark in the third to the 3:19 mark in the third before Atlanta would once again begin to, whittle that lead down a bit. And they'll go on a little mini run themselves, 8-0 run to cut the lead to 73-76 before a pair of Donovan Mitchell free throws would push the lead back up to 5. And it was just back and forth up to that point before Cleveland would ultimately pull away in that fourth quarter, where they would outscore Atlanta 39-33. Now, if you were wondering about the turnover front overall, I think they actually were credited with 22 total turnovers forced over on the Atlanta side, but Cleveland, it would end up with 33 points off of turnovers. So I think they actually reversed one of those. But moral of the story, they would score 33 points off of those Atlanta miscues while only turning the ball over 16 times tonight themselves. And so that's the type of shit that I'm okay with when you don't have your, primary orchestrator out there in Darius Garland that is able to get guys in their spots the way that we want them to. But I'll tell you what, it's beautiful, man. It was beautiful basketball being played, even when the shot wasn't falling and even when things get kind of stagnant out there. One player on the Atlanta Hawks sideline that I kind of have to give props to, because I remain a fan of him. I thought he should have been an all-star last year had he not gotten injured, and that is Jaylon Johnson. This dude was absolutely murdering Cleveland on the glass. But overall, he would finish with 23 points, 13 boards, led the way for Atlanta in that regard, in addition to 5 assists, a steal, and would go 10 of 16 from the field, including 1 of 2 from deep. Wasn't all that efficient at the line, just 2 of 5. But Jaylon Johnson brought his A game tonight against this Cavaliers team, and I think that's pretty damn dope, objectively speaking, because this is a guy, honestly, that I'm a huge fan of out there. I thought that even by halftime, Jaylon Johnson had a double-double at halftime. This motherfucker had a double-double at halftime, 11 points, 10 boards, 4 assists, 5 of 8 from the field. He was killing the Cavaliers, and that much should actually be said. So credit where credit's due. But the only Spider Mitchell was the guy who was out there really, really shutting shit down. It's just awesome to see Spite out there. Before I get to that, though, just a quick shout out to Slick as Butter, who says, I got Tyson nickname. It's Tyson B Ballin'. That's a good one. He also says, I don't know. Well, I know we 7 games in, but I don't have too much to look at. My Browns is hot trash. So I take these games, at least one of my teams getting W's. Listen, it was a good day, at least in this regard. I know these things can be kind of rough as a Cleveland fan if you're a fan of the Browns. You guys know I'm not, but I do feel for Browns fans because I feel like the city deserves better than the product that they're given on a weekly basis. And it sucks, but the Cavaliers are there to pick things up. I'm not going to talk too much shit about the Browns just because that's not my bag, but I do know that the Cavaliers are there to pick up the spirits when things do not go well with the Cleveland Browns. So I'll tell you what, I think that this team, as of right now, there have been so many things that have occurred this season, and the team is not even at full strength. So it's hard to kind of contextualize everything. It's hard to put things in the correct perspective. And you guys know that's what I'm all about. I preach positivity all the live long day. I've tried to stay kind of realistic too. But at the same time, the one thing that I have consistently said is that we need to be experimenting, we need to be evaluating, and eventually hope to evolve. And I think that is what the early portion of this season is going to be about. And so if you're going through some of these growing pains, as the Cavaliers now sit at 4-3 in this Eastern Conference, that is kind of surprising a lot of people as Chicago, right? They're look to be going down against the New York Knicks as we speak right now, but they entered today undefeated, if I'm not mistaken. At 4-3, why would I be pissed off about some of the losses that we've experienced when I'm sitting here and I'm loving the individual progression out of certain players, especially the younger guys, because that's what this is for. I know a lot of people already harbor that, oh, regular season doesn't matter mentality. So why am I putting so much stock into the early portion of the season when half the fucking rotation is out? I mean, that's what I'm going to say. I think that you look at you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference. Cavaliers can afford to lose a couple of games in early going if it means they're getting Evan Mobley these critical touches, this elevated usage, and they're getting him comfortable, even more comfortable as a self creator out there. If they're getting Jaylen Tyson those critical developmental minutes in games that will eventually start to matter for this team, if they're finding ways to get Tyrese Proctor, the second round pick, real minutes, and he's producing in small spurts, these are the types of things that matter much more to me than the win-loss record early on, because I have no doubt in my mind Cavaliers can make up any ground that they end up losing. Let me not forget Craig Porter Jr., right? This is a critical season for Craig, as in games where Lonzo may not look to be completely up to the task, or he's still trying to find his shot and it's not falling. Craig is a guy that you can turn to and know, hey, this is a player who still has a vast amount of potential if you give him those opportunities, right? And speaking of Lonzo Ball, right? You guys know I'm a huge fan. I can be a little bit annoying with it. I get it, but I'm just going to keep shouting from the rooftops to stay patient with this guy, because every single game he's going to give you a handful of plays or a quarter when he is just all his fingerprints are all over it. And that's what you got from Lonzo in this one. Is something that you absolutely loved to see out of Lonzo, who had finished tonight with, if I'm not mistaken, 8 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and was 3 of 8 from the field, including 2 of 6 from 3-point distance. Now, again, the efficiency, that's what a lot of people are going to look at when it comes to Lonzo. And what I say to that is you just have to be patient, because it will come up. After tonight's game, over Lonzo's last 4 games, he is averaging 7.5 points, 5 rebounds as a guard, and 4.5 assists, while shooting 40.7% from the field, including 36.8% from deep. So over the last 4 games, he has knocked down at least 2 triples in 3 of 4, and he has knocked down 36.8%. Now, on the season as a whole, obviously, it doesn't really look great because the first couple of games, it was terrible. He was 1 of 7 against the Knicks to open the season. He was 0 of 4 against the Nets. But since then, in the last 4 games, because remember, he did sit out for 1 because of the back-to-back, Lonzo has slowly but surely started to creep back up to around his career averages. And I say this lovingly, but Lonzo has never truly been an efficient player from inside the arc. The bulk of his percentages, they have always been better when he's taking the 3-point shot. Lonzo, for those of you who are not aware, like, he was entering the season, he was basically a 40% shooter from the field, which is not great from an efficiency standpoint. But the one thing that had buoyed that was his immense ability to knock down that 3-point shot. That's what it is. I mean, so if you take the last 4, if you just do away with the first 2 and start to look at the last 4, things are trending upward. That's what I'm trying to say. And to me, like, there are a handful of plays every single game that you say, oh man, this dude, once he's got Max Strus next to him, once he's got Sam Merrill next to him in that second unit, playing beside Larry. Again, I'm going to talk about Larry in a minute. I'm not going to hide from it. He's going to look really, really good because those are some connective passers out there. And I do truly believe that that shot is going to start to fall with a good amount of efficiency. And that is already trending back upward. And so be patient with Zoe because he's really, really going to make a lot of people eat their words. I've already conversed with a lot of people who just don't think Lonzo has it, or they're so far deep into missing Ty Jerome that they're not seeing what Lonzo has brought to the table. And it's kind of sad because, you know, they're refusing to move on. For a player, ultimately, I believe in Lonzo, he was going to impact or have a much higher ceiling on what the Cavaliers can do in the playoffs than Ty Jerome did. And that's not any disrespect to him, but I just believe that Lonzo's two-way ability and some of the skills that don't overlap with what Donovan and Darius bring to the table, they can be very beneficial beside Lonzo because, believe it or not, this is a player that you can play at the 1, the 2, and sometimes the 3. You can actually play Lonzo beside Darius and Donovan if you want to. And I'm very curious to see if Kenny experiments with that. And I think he will. Maybe not in the playoffs, but I think you will see those lineups at the point, at some point. And that's a beautiful thing for, to be able to bring to the table off the bench. Lonzo, again, this is another game in which he played 20 plus minutes, not just we enter the season and the thing that they were telling us was that Lonzo would be on this minutes restriction, and clearly he is not. And so we're now 6 games into the Lonzo Ball experience, and he looks healthy as fuck to me. He looks fine. The efficiency may not be there completely. It's starting to trend upward. I'm going to say that again. But Lonzo looks healthy as he's been in years. And that's a beautiful thing to me. So I hope that continues. And I hope more and more people continue to make, he continues to make more and more people fans out of him. Larry Nance Jr. Oh boy, my guy, Larry did not have a good game. He did not have a good game. The stat sheet for Larry Nance Jr. reads 3 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal. So in one, in a positive thing, if you want to take anything positive, is that Larry does know how to at least kind of, contribute in multiple areas. But the shot is god awful right now. 1 of 9 from the field tonight, 0 of 4 from 3-point distance. And the other big component of tonight was the fouls. Larry had some bad fouls out there, some that just did not sit well with me. Yeah, and I know that the whistle really, really was not going the Cavs' way tonight, but legitimately I felt that there were some fouls out there that he just did not have to commit in his 25 minutes of action. And for those of you wondering, on the season so far through these 7 games, Larry is averaging 4.3 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 1.6 assists while shooting a very icy 30.8% from the field, including an even icier, probably tundra, right? Frozen tundra-ish, 23.5% from deep on roughly 2.4 attempts. So the shot is not falling in any capacity. I think that what Larry is capable of bringing to the table is still there, and I think you see it in spurts. But right now, the shot is not falling for Larry, and it's tough. It is very, very tough to watch when he has taken that shot. And there have actually been possessions. I don't know if it was against Boston. I think it was where Larry kind of forced the issue on back-to-back possessions from deep. And there will be games in which I do believe the shot starts to fall. But as of right now, you can see why people might prefer Thomas Bryant minutes, a small dose of them in specific lineups. Now, the good news is that obviously they have this depth in the front court, which they did not have last year, and they hadn't had in years. And Jarrett Allen was not available tonight, which is another reason why Thomas Bryant played. But it does help to know, it does put your mind at ease to know that you have Evan, you have Jarrett, you have Larry, you have Thomas, you have Dean, and you have Hunter. You have Tyson who can even contribute at the four. You have a lot of these players that are multi-positional and can contribute when other guys are not able to do as much. And right now, Larry is just kind of having a rough one. It is definitely not something to, I think, worry ourselves about just yet, because I see numerous comments down there saying that he's just unplayable right now. But I think that Kenny is probably going to elect to keep him in the rotation and just to try and get him going some way, somehow. And I think that they would not have brought him in just to bench him this early on. I think they're going to continue to give him these opportunities. So I'm going to try and stay even keeled. And I truly believe Larry will get out of the funk. But we'll see when it's happen with that. But I do have to call a spade a spade. I do have to keep it 100. It was a rough game. It was a rough game for Larry in that regard. But I got to circle my way back here before we get to the Evan Mobley of it all. I got to circle my way back here to Donovan Mitchell, because this dude was absolutely cooking. Absolutely cooking with grease out there, man. 37 points, 2 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, 12 of 21 from the field. That is 57.1% from the field overall, 8 of 15 from three-point range, and 5 of 5. That graphic is incorrect, obviously, in regards to the free throw, but he was 5 of 5 on the charity stripe, which is a nice, nice thing to see, because the Cavaliers have been absolutely ass from the charity stripe to begin the season, but they shot 94.4% from the free throw line tonight, 7 of 18 overall. The only player to miss a free throw was Evan Mobley tonight, who went just 1 of 2. But what I saw from Donovan is not unlike anything I haven't seen from Donovan since he's arrived in Cleveland. This actually marked the 75th. Get this. This was Donovan Mitchell's 75th game with at least 30 points since he arrived in Cleveland. That is fucking crazy to me. And it also marks the 6th game in his Cleveland Cavaliers tenure where he's knocked down 8 or more triples. Just absolutely awesome. Just absolutely awesome from Donovan when he is in his bag and he is cooking and he is feeling it. And again, a lot of that came earlier on, but the third and fourth quarters, this man really started to heat up and then heat up in a big way. And he's just so damn impressive out there. The signature moves out there, right? The Euro, the step throughs, some of the shit out there that just looks, it's poetry in motion. It is aesthetically pleasing. Beautiful basketball when Donovan is cooking. And I know the gripes with Don so far this season is that he just does not look like a great point guard. He can't get the ball to the bigs. He can't get his guys involved when it matters, when it counts down the stretch. And I understand some of those concerns, but to that, I'll also say, listen, we're going to get Darius back pretty soon, and Darius is going to really smooth things over. And Don, how I feel about him at the point is that he can play the point, but obviously that is not his most optimal role. And I think we see that clearly now and how important Darius Garland is to the makeup of this rotation, how important he is to the offense being ran out there smoothly, how important he is to getting the bigs involved, especially Jarrett Allen. And so Don, I don't take him for granted at all, because without Donovan Mitchell, this team is probably closer to a play-in team. with the way that they have played to begin the season. And again, I know that some of that is like legitimately because of injury concerns, but there have also been some things out there that have been bothersome, whether that be the effort on the glass, whether that be the free throws, whether that be the inability to defend the 3-point line at times. Don has carried in a big way to begin the season. And I know he kind of had a dud there, but it was revealed that he was dealing with the injury before the game. And he gave his best, right? And then he misses a game, he comes back, and he just absolutely obliterates the competition. And you love to see that from Don. And again, his 75th game with at least 30 plus points for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Fucking insane to me. Brilliant. Let's go, Spider. I love it, man. I truly do. Just brilliant stuff from our guy. But let's move on here to Evan Mobley, because I honestly believe that tonight, while Mobley did not start the game well at all from an efficiency standpoint, because he was locked at 6 points for a minute. Those of you who may have put in a parlay tonight probably were pissed off at Evan Mobley early on, but he would close things out in better fashion. He would finish with a pretty well-rounded 14 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and a block out there. Say what you want about the man, but the man knows how to impact the game in all categories. And they have given him increased usage this season. He is averaging the most usage of his entire career this year. But I think that the matchup with Kristaps Porzingis, who has kind of always been a thorn in the proverbial side of Evan Mobley, at least from a defensive standpoint, it was a pretty rough outing overall. But I'll tell you what, he made the plays when it mattered. He was able to move the rock around. And I think there's a lot to be said about the way that you close the game juxtaposed to how you start it. Because as they say, it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. And I thought that the Cavaliers as a team finished very, very well. But Mobley in particular, I thought that he ended the game much better than he started. And so I love the fact that even in a game where Evan Mobley just does not have it from an offensive standpoint, other guys are there to pick him up. Jaylen Tyson, DeAndre Hunter was not phenomenal tonight either, by the way. We'll get to him in a second. But Jaylen Tyson, Donovan Mitchell, Lonzo, Dean actually, from an offensive standpoint, he was actually starting to knock down some timely shots. But yeah, Porzingis, whenever Porzingis is playing Evan Mobley, it is probably never going to be a fun game, because this guy has always given Evan issues. And that's just me trying to be 100, trying to be objective. But you got to give credit where credit is due. And for those of you wondering what KP finished with tonight, if you didn't watch the game, 15 points, 12 boards, 5 assists, a block, was 5-11 from the field, did not knock down a 3, was 5-7 at the charity stripe. That was Kristaps Porzingis tonight. So we'll see. But I do believe that Evan will continue to elevate himself. I think that you look at that, the involvement that he's had, you look at the touches that he's had, and I know that it hasn't been pretty at points. The shot selection has drawn some ire from myself even, but I do believe that Evan is only going to continue to get better. And I don't know if you subscribe to the belief that he has to be the number one clear-cut option in order for this team to win a championship, because honestly, I don't think that's the case. I think as long as he is no worse than 1B to Donovan Mitchell's 1A, I think this team has a shot to win a title this year. And remember, Darius Garland is still in the roster. He is going to have his games in the playoffs, hopefully, where he shows out. DeAndre Hunter, he can self-create for himself. And I think that you look at all the offensive weapons on this team, and it doesn't have to be, oh, this guy is the number one clear-cut option. We know Donovan can, but it's not always sustainable. And for me, I truly do believe that as long as Mobley is no worse than 1B this year from an offensive standpoint, and clearly the Cavaliers are trying to make him that way, they're trying to get him comfortable with that, I do believe that they can win a title with that being the hierarchy. And if you don't agree with that, that's okay. But that is where I am at currently. But we'll see. And again, I think the player who is probably going to be tasked with stepping back the most in terms of shots It is probably going to be Darius as he leans into playmaking more, but there will, again, be games where Darius absolutely cooks or goes off against whoever they face in the playoffs. And so I say all this to say that if they do make it to the finals, like I do believe they can, I think that Donovan Mitchell is probably going to end up winning finals MVP. That's just where I'm at. But we'll see. We are so far away from that right now. I'm not even going to entertain any of those talks until we really truly get to that level. But man, this was such a wonderful return to the win category, right? The win column. I love to see the Cavaliers show out like this the way that they do, and really, really tough to find too many negatives in such a fun and exciting game such as this. And I think what better way to hop into the chat, what better time to hop into the chat than now. We kick things off with Neverbloom, who says the refs tonight fucking sucked. Yeah. Yeah, man. They got a lot of calls. They got a lot of calls over there as Cleveland was called for a foul 28 times. There were at least 1, 2, 3 different players who picked up at least 5 fouls, if NBA.com is correct for this specific game right now. You know, it is what it is. The Cavaliers were still able to win. D. Jackson says, we play like the Cavs late in the fourth, and Jaylen Tyson stepped up big time tonight. He was hitting important threes late in the fourth. And so that's another part of Jaylen Tyson's performance. It wasn't simply the fact that he's knocking them down. It's the fact that he hit them when he hit them, the clutchness. He says, will you play like the Cavaliers late in the fourth quarter? And Jaylen Tyson stepped. Yeah, he's just repeating it. Doc Joby says Jaylen Tyson. Luigi says Tyson. He says, HJ17 Game says, I've been trying to tell you all about how impactful Jaylen is going into the season, and my propaganda is now reality. Hey, I'm right there with you, man. When I released my preview for Jaylen, this is exactly what I had in mind. And a lot of people didn't agree with me, but I think this is the case. M&J says, Jaylen motherfucking Tyson. Yep. Chaz Erica says, missed most of the game where the Cavaliers were the Cavs of the rest that bad. The refs. M&J agrees, said refs were terrible. Scott Foster crew. Yeah, it's been crazy. Nicotine 2977 says Larry Nance continuing the long tradition of good 3-point shooters who come to the Cavs and forget how to shoot. I think it'll eventually come around, but again, I think that it helps to know that even in games like this where Larry can go 1 of 9 from the field, that everybody else can step up or other players can step up. Lena says the Cavs have to stop shooting so many threes. 2-point shots add up too, which is why the Hawks were able to stay in the game. I think the reality of the situation when it comes to the interior and attacking the paint and the stat sheet right now, the game chart for this one says that the Cavaliers scored 34 points in the paint to Atlanta's 60. A lot of that is simply not having an orchestrator out there that can get the ball to the bigs in the way to set them up for easy shots, right? Evan Mobley, in terms of frequency, is taking the most shots from, or taking the most long twos of his career. He is averaging I want to say the career low, the lowest of his career in terms of shots at the rim. Just 34% of his shots this season prior to tonight's game came at the rim. That is in the 31st percentile, by far the lowest of his career, not where you want to be. Conversely, he has taken the most triples of his career. 33% of his shots have been 3-pointers. That's 76th percentile. If you're talking about the mid-range, he is averaging the second highest frequency of long twos, dating back to his rookie season. He's in the 73rd percentile in terms of frequency for the long twos. And that really shows on the stat sheet, right? In terms of some of the shot attempts and the shot chart overall. Some of the attempts you don't love, and a lot of that is not having a guy who can get you those easy shots at the rim like a Darius Garland can, like a Max Strus can. And that's not to say that Lonzo or Donovan aren't capable, but it's just not something you see with high frequency from them. And so these points in the paint, and I was actually conversating with somebody about this today, Entering tonight's matchup, the Cavaliers ranked 28th, if you can believe it, in points in the paint to begin the season. 28th out of 30 teams when you have basically two really, really good players in your front court in Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. That really should never be the case. You got to be at least in the top 15 when you have guys like that on your roster. But again, a big part of that is not having guys who can get you those good shots, put you in those good positions to score at will at the rim. And I think that's why you're seeing that, because you don't have Darius out there right now. And Donovan and Lonzo and Craig, for what it's worth, just aren't the same type of passers, facilitators, and orchestrators that those guys are. And so I think that is why you have seen that. HA17 Gaming says, depending upon matchup, Bryant should take the Larry minutes. It's not just matchup, it's literally lineup, like who is available, because Evan Mobley, believe it or not, has actually played more minutes at center this year than he has at power forward. Entering tonight, Evan had played 56% of his minutes at the 5, opposite 44% at the power forward position. And a lot of that is because in lineups where Jarrett Allen is not on the floor, it's not Larry Nance Jr. who's at the 5 and Mobley at the 4. Larry is lining up at the 4 and Mobley is lining up at the 5. And so I think they love to get the lineups where Mobley is the 5 so you can play 5 out. But the other part to consider in regard to this is Thomas Bryant's inability to play anything other than the 5. And so when you have 3 players who are capable of, contributing, well, 4 players actually, you probably have more than that, to be honest with you. But when you have Jarrett Allen, when you have Evan Mobley, when you have Thomas Bryant, when you have Larry Nance Jr., all players who have shown the ability to play at the 5, it's hard to find a player who can only play the 5 in Bryant minutes at the 5, especially if you have this inclination to see how impactful Evan Mobley can be in minutes at the 5. And I think that's ultimately where you want to be at. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because the signing of Thomas Bryant was never supposed to be anything more than playable depth come the playoffs, juxtaposed to being a rotational player. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, but that's the reality. As Thomas has only played, Thomas has played 100% of his minutes at the 5 this year. That is just where they're at. That's okay, though, because, again, you didn't sign him to be a part of the rotation. You signed him to be playable depth. If there is an injury, if there's a matchup, if there is a certain physicality that is needed, or if a guy's just sucking ass and you need somebody to step up. And so that is what Thomas Bryant is. That is where he will come to play against the players, against the guys like Mitchell Robinson over in New York, or Wendell Carter Jr. in Orlando. There are specific matchups. So Isaiah Hartenstein of OKC. There are these like big guys out there that you're going to need, physicality out there for. And I think that's a big part of why Thomas Bryant is here. Thomas Bryant playing Joel Embiid, or I'm just trying to think of some of these beefier 5s that you might need him for. But it to me is the inability to play the 4 that hurts Thomas's ability to play consistently, because Larry can play for the 4, he can play the 5. Evan, he can play the 4, he can play the 5. Dean, he can play 3, 4, and the 5. There's a lot of interchangeability with those guys in terms of position, but Thomas, unfortunately, can only truly play the 5. And yes, he can shoot the 3. Yeah, he's an intimidating presence. Yes, he can rebound, but there's only so many minutes to go around at the 5 when you have Jarrett, when you have Evan, when you have Larry. You guys see where I'm going with this. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm glad overall that we have him, truly. Bucknut9828 says, more Bryant and Embiid. Yeah, I agree. Ian 7064 says he's still not physically strong enough. I'm assuming this is in reference to Evan Mobley. And to be honest with you, I prefer Evan Mobley at the 4, like full time. I'm fine with Evan at the 5 in certain lineups to make use of his ability to space and how big of a defensive mismatch he is for a lot of 5s. But over the duration of an entire season, no, I do not want Evan Mobley at the 5 just yet. That's where I'm at. Ian also says, anyone else notice how quickly the Cavs give up their leads? They'll go up by 8 to 10 points. I leave the room, they're suddenly tied. That's been a problem for years, but as we all know, Ian, basketball is a game of runs. And it will happen. The other team, they're professionals too, and that is just part of basketball. And longest run tonight was 10 points, 10 straight. I believe that was the Cavaliers' opening run, 10-0 to open the game. But there were a lot of mini runs in there as Atlanta, again, 8-0 run to close out that third quarter to kind of even things out. There was the 21-7 run that the Cavaliers went on from the early stages of the third to around that 3-minute mark. And so it's a game of runs. That's what it is all about. Essential Listening says, I was at the game, and despite Mobley's lackluster offensive night, he still has the fundamental offensive understanding to be consistently impactful. And 4 versus 3, he's always making the right choice. Yes. Rough night offensively, but he rounded things out. He will always make his presence felt on the defensive end one way or another. And he, even when the shot is not falling, he'll get he'll get spray outs. He'll be able to make the correct read if he's bringing the ball up the floor a lot more often than he has in the couple of seasons past. And so I think you're seeing some of that progression from him. It's not perfect, but he's getting better. And I think that tonight is an underrated game. It wasn't his best game, but it was certainly a rough one from an offensive standpoint. Floyd Phillips II says, Cavs offense is non-existent, can only shoot threes. Really disappointing. Atkinson needs help on the coaching bench. Floyd, I don't know if you caught this, but again, it's not necessarily Kenny's inability to run a proper offense. It's literally, and it's not necessarily an over-reliance on the three because they want to. It's because of the personnel, in my opinion. You don't have a player who can consistently, outside of Donovan Mitchell and maybe Craig Porter Jr., DeAndre Hunter is not really a guy who looks to facilitate all that often. Evan Mobley is growing there. But outside of Donovan, like from possession to possession, you don't have a lot of guys that can put penetration and rim pressure on opposing team that generates cutting lanes for players, that generates a lot of open threes out there, a lot of dribble penetration. You're not seeing that outside of Donovan, outside of Evan. And it is a real problem because it means that you're not able to score in the paint as consistently as you want. And so I think personnel is more the issue than it is their sheer insistence on out shooting teams, because again, tonight was another night where they opted to take a good amount of triples. As a team, they attempted 57. Donovan himself attempted 15. I mean, that's almost 30. That's almost 33%, right? I'm not really a math guy, obviously, but that's almost 30% or over 30%, honestly, of the 3-point attempts. Jaylen took 11. You had DeAndre who took 9. And I think what you're seeing out of them, Lonzo took 6, Dean took 6. There was a lot of shots out there that did not go down, obviously. But again, a lot of that is due to personnel. And I think that you have to have somebody out there that can get these guys good shots at the rim. It's why you're seeing Evan Mobley's shot selection look a little bit different than it has in years past. It's why Jarrett Allen's involvement in the offense hasn't been what we have been used to over the last couple of years, because they're not getting the ball to him as consistently, because they don't have guys that can consistently do that. I love Donovan, but he's not the same type of orchestrator that Darius Garland is. Lonzo is not either. These guys get the ball to their players in different ways, and I think that has to be understood. Floyd says Atkinson needs more tenured coaches with head coaching experience on the bench. Steve Kerr had multiple ex-head coaches. Dude, we're talking about a guy who this is not his first go-around as a head coach. And I think that he showed you just last year that I think he is creative as hell. It's not a lack of experience on the bench. It's really not. The lack of offensive creativity, to me, is literally, most of it is boiled down to personnel. You have no Sam Merrill. You have no Max Strus. You have no Darius Garland, no Jarrett Allen out there tonight. Yeah, the offense is not going to look as smooth from an interior standpoint as we have wanted it to. But Darius will be back soon. And I think that we just have to understand these things and not be too overly critical of what we've seen, because the team that we are seeing right now is nowhere near the team that we're going to see in the next couple of months. That's where we're going to see. That is exactly what we're going to see. And yes, he did get out coached by Rick Carlisle. Don't forget his name. Floyd says Atkinson got out coached against Page's coach. Floyd, if you don't know, the name is Rick Carlisle. And yes, he did get out coached, but I think that's all a part of the learning process. That was, as a head coach, that was only his second career postseason. He did lead Brooklyn to one, never had a shot in it, obviously. But last year, I think that he did get out coached. And there's no shame in that, considering that Rick Carlisle is a championship winning coach, has been in this league a lot longer, and who also made the finals again. So respect Carlisle. Nothing against Kenny Atkinson. He got out coached. It happens. And it will continue to happen to other coaches around the league who are qualified, right? We have seen Tom Thibodeau get out coached. He's been tenured. He's been fired. We've seen Eric Spoelstra, even being one of the best coaches in the NBA. We've seen him be out coached at times. It happens. All I know is that Kenny is going to be okay. Going to be okay. Talking to Grubman Media says, Max, sometimes I think some fans don't study basketball. They just skim through it. I think that can be the case at times. And I know that, to me, I try not to be too big of a dick about that, but I do also think that it's important to educate people on some of the finer details that are being missed, right? A la the points in the paint issue, right? I think that the personnel that's missed right now, not having the ability to dribble drive consistently, not having guys who can put pressure on the defense, that's a missed part. And when they look at the stats, the pure stats, like you look at 28th in points in the paint as a team, you might see that and be like, man, they're just not getting the ball to the paint. They don't want to score in the interior. They're soft. They're taking too many threes. It's not just that. All of these things are intertwined. They're all interconnected. And I do think a lot of people miss that. True. And right now, I just think you have to take everything you're seeing with a kind of a grain of salt, because again, they're down literally 4 rotation players. No Sam, no Darius, no Max, no Jarrett. Hopefully Sam and Jarrett come back soon. Hopefully Darius is back out there before we know it. And we know that he's been taking shots. He's participating in scrimmages and practices. And I think they're just being cautious with him. But I do believe that is the right approach. I don't know. We'll see. Thanks as always for joining the stream. I love the fact that the Cavaliers are experimenting and evaluating all this young talent. And as Nicotine 299 says down here, I completely agree. All the injuries could be a blessing in disguise if Tyson continues to develop. And yeah, Tyson's been awesome. It is not just Tyson out there, obviously, but even if one or two of these guys really turn into one of these clear rotation pieces, and Tyson looks like that right now, then it truly is a blessing in disguise. Because if Max Strus was healthy, if Sam Merrill was healthy, I hate to say this, but Jaylen Tyson probably doesn't touch the court, but in blowouts. That's just reality. And he would have never had this opportunity if both of those guys were healthy. And again, Sam was obviously healthy to begin the season, but if Max was out there, if Sam was out there, Tyson probably doesn't get opportunities the way that he has. And to me, that is a blessing in disguise. And sometimes when you have things like this occur, it gives you that opportunity to see what the young guy has and to make some decisions on other guys. And this is not me saying that they're like going to move on from Sam or move on from Max or whoever else if Tyson continues to play the way he does. But you can also say, like, hey, if we believe that this guy can contribute and we're going to place more faith in him, yeah, we might start having some of these discussions at times. But I don't know. We'll see. As I always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out to me, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_TikTok. _pod on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all that good stuff. You guys know what I'm about to say, right? If you want to support the pod in a small but helpful way, consider becoming a member over on Patreon. You can do so on YouTube as well for as little as $1 a month. But even if you don't, I will be here continuously making this content because I love this team and I know you guys do too. Go Cavs.